this now. You said you've been listening, so you already know. Question one, since you are a black parent, the situation in Dallas-Fort Worth, I suspect that you've probably seen that situation already. You tend to be pretty informed about things. Where this black mother, she called the police because a white neighbor had put his hands on her 7-year-old black son. The police white officer arrived, eventually told her, it's reported, he said to her, "Why don't you teach your child not to litter?" Eventually he handcuffed her, had her prone on the ground, and another black female. He pointed his taser at them, and they were arrested and handcuffed, taken away. We had a black mother, she dialed in yesterday, and she said, what suggestions do we recommend? What suggestions do you have for a black female or black parent, period, about how they should handle that sort of situation? Do you not call the police? Do you call the police? What would your suggestion be as a black parent?
The first thing that I would do, and to be very honest with you, I would call my best friends that I know are down. And by that I mean my best friends that are smart and wise enough to come equipped to help us navigate the situation. And I would not necessarily default to calling the police. Remember when I told you that policemen oftentimes are us? Unfortunately, I don't like to say it, but it's kind of true when we're dealing with our youth and oftentimes our women. Oftentimes when we see the policemen, we need to be mindful that whenever possible, we should avoid and observe, as opposed to thinking that they are here to protect and serve. Avoid and observe. I say that very candidly because it's been so many situations in the history of the U.S. when black folk have called the policeman. I mean people that don't even have any mental health condition. They've called the policeman, and the people that they call to provide aid have actually shown up as an adversary. They come up and they victimize the people that sought their help. So with specific regard to the situation where that black parent unfortunately found herself in a compromised situation, you have to embrace a fundamental understanding about pathology. And this does not apply to all policemen. However, it applies to a disproportionate number in any number of precincts in the South, the North, the Midwest, East, wherever they are. The mentality of a lot of these individuals unfortunately translates into a barbarian with a badge. And a barbarian with a badge who happens to be packing is a very, very dangerous entity to deal with. So, sadly, I say to you again, I would call my best friends who are equipped to navigate and monitor the situation. And navigate, it has a lot of connotations with it. Not just come in and be record keepers, but people that are comfortable enough to come in and provide some intervention. Because it doesn't make any sense. Like we had a situation in Baltimore probably a couple of years ago when a policeman went into a school and handcuffed a child. He was either in kindergarten or the first grade. And sadly, I also say to you, I think that we're going to see a little bit more of this now that we have the new president-elect preparing to move into 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. So again, I redundantly make clear, I'd call my best friends who are prepared to navigate and intervene. Because sadly, again, I'm being redundant, but I'm being redundant to be clear. You have to understand the mentality of a lot of these policemen. You are deceiving yourself if you expect them to get rational behavior out of irrational people. Are you following my logic?
Absolutely.
I mean, it's just the truth. It's just the truth. And I'm not the type of person to advocate violence. I am the kind of person to do what Malcolm said. I'm not the kind of person, if you smack my cheek, if you're fortunate enough to catch me off guard, then you smack my cheek. But I'll be damned if I'm going to turn around and let you smack the next one. You follow me? And ain't nowhere in the world, as a parent, you either see me on the news, in handcuffs, or in the hospital or the morgue. No way in the world am I going to allow a police person to come in and aggressively assault and engage in combative tactics with any of my children. No way, shape, fashion, or form. And if the boys in blue or gray or khaki, whatever color they wear throughout the country who happen to be allowed to wear a badge, fail to understand what I'm saying, I pity them in their ignorance, because there's no way, shape, fashion, or form any conscious parent is going to allow his or her offspring to be handled inappropriately by a so-called officer of the law, particularly at that age, because the child that young was probably afraid, probably perplexed, trying to fathom, what is this person doing to me that my mother actually called to come in and assist us?
It wasn't, just for clarification, it wasn't the officer that manhandled the child. It was the white neighbor. He's not an enforcement officer. He's just, a random white citizen. He was the one who physically assaulted her child, and then she called the police to deal with him. And the police officer ended up arresting her and putting her in another.
But see, back up. I got you. Let me be clear. I don't want to allow what I just said to literally just restrict it to the child. The mother intervening on behalf of the child, she called the policeman to come in, and in her efforts to intervene, the policeman reminds her of what she should have done with her child. And subsequent to him reminding her of what she should have done for her child, then the policeman aggressively assaults her. You follow my logic?
With you.
You follow my logic? It's like the man was already out of line with the child. So she calls the policeman to come in to offer authorized intervention. And in her efforts to go through the appropriate protocol to have the policeman to come in and assist, then she becomes a victim of the policeman. That's why I started off by saying I call my best friends people that are better equipped to navigate the situation. It's almost like I used to tell my kids, if you need to go to the hospital, Dick Gregory used to say call him a taxi or call him a cab, but don't wait for the ambulance, right? You call people that you know that can get to you as quickly to address the situation as quickly as the people that are supposedly authorized to do so. Because what happens is, process it. Okay, they handcuffed her, they manhandled her, and then what does that do to the psyche of the child? So now you have this really perpetual damage going on at a genetic level. Now the kid is perplexed, because the kid is like, wait, you called the policeman, I think, and then the policeman comes in and assaults/attacks you. So where does that leave the kid? Back to the George DeGruy post-traumatic slavery syndrome. Like when you said, Dr. Wilson said early on in this program, all of us have been victimized by the system of white supremacy. I kind of steer clear of the word victim. We've been victimized by it, and we're victimized by it every day. So when you actually reach out to try and get some aid, and the efforts to get aid, it's almost like you have a toddler in your hand, and you're saying the toddler accidentally burns her hand on the stove, and then you're going to come back to the stove and be so awkward in your movement that you're going to burn the toddler several times again. Now, not only do you have a child now who's dealing with probably second and third degree burns on a distant part of his body, hand or forearm, now the child has some form of insidious brain trauma. Because the kid is like, what the hell happened? The neighbor already roughhoused him. And after the neighbor did what the neighbor did, here comes the policeman who's going to come in and reprimand the parent. Do you remember when that brother, Baltimore, there was a mother, they portrayed her on the national news over and over again. Her son had gone out to protest, and in her efforts to discipline her son, she recognized him. And I think she smacked him across the head or grabbed him and sort of like roughhoused him, and they put it on the news about how she had handled her son. There was a woman handling her son, and they talked about that mother. I don't remember the actual incident, but the scenario that followed the incident that led to the rioting, if you will, or the mayhem in the street. This mother had come out there to be her son. So the point being, they paraded that all over the news about how this mother had done what she did to her son. She had basically roughhoused her son, disciplined her son very aggressively. And I mentioned to some of my students many months ago, had that happened in Chevy Chase or Bethesda, Maryland, the policeman would have arrested that mother for being too aggressive with that child. Now, back to the 7-year-old. If that mother had gone outside, called the policeman, had smacked the crap out of the boy was sitting on the side of the sidewalk crying when the policeman had come along, this is how pathology works. The policeman may have been, okay, wait a minute. Looks like you might have handled this child a little too excessively in terms of intervention. However, on the other hand, the policeman was not short to convey to her, by the way, you should have taught your son better. And she's trying to explain and intervene on behalf of her son, and she winds up getting arrested. And I do realize I misspoke when I said that the policeman comes and do X, Y, and Z. But what I want you to understand is there is very little difference in it. The reality is all of us, we are in no position to question the authority of white folk with a badge, white folk with a gun, white folk that have been authorized by a system to treat us the way we are treated. Are you following me now?
Can I hit pause really quick just to emphasize a point that you made? A just extraordinary point that you made with this now.